Hello, I'm Pamela Aaralyn, and in light of the monthly theme for August, Facing One's Fears with Love, I would like to take a moment to talk about ascension fear. It is the latest of everything that everyone is talking about. When will we ascend? How will we ascend? Will it be painful? Will I be left behind? All sorts of questions. And in order to reach enlightenment in the first place, fear should not be a consideration. First thing. You've asked a lot of questions about ascension, especially after my Yeshua channeling. I hold no recollections of trance channeling scenarios, so I had no idea what he had said to you in relation to your ascension questions. And as soon as I got off the channeling, I was plummeted. What did he mean? What did he mean? What's going to happen? For those of you who want to know what I'm discussing, you can go on over to my Yeshua channeling, the most recent one, about, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it is the second channeling that we did with Yeshua. And many people asked questions about ascension, and it seemed to cause a ruckus when he answered. So I would like to clarify from my perspective, not necessarily from just a channel perspective, but from my understanding of ascension. Therefore, I gave you guys a chance today over on our Facebook group to ask all of your questions, and I am going to answer them. I haven't read them yet. I have no idea what's going on with that, but I'm going to answer them because I would really like to extinguish the ascension fear once and for all and let you guys know really what it's all about, okay? Because fear is not going to help you get there. I'm excited about ascension too, but we cannot be afraid of it. Okay, so let's just work through these fears together, especially in light of the theme of the month being facing fears. I think this is a big one. Ascension fear can definitely hold you back from exactly what you want, which is ascension. So I'm just going to read them off and go ahead and begin to discuss it. So one of the questions was, I am wondering and working on this ascension fear, but is it going to hurt? I'm not sure if you mean, is it going to physically hurt? She expounded upon that question a little bit. Now, up underneath that comment, she said, well, now I got my own answer. It could not hurt any more or less than open heart surgery to have a rare tumor removed from inside my heart, not the 5 years of headaches before they finally discovered that tumor. I'm glad that you answered your own question, Lori. But just to generalize, ascension is a process. It doesn't hurt any more so or less than healing from a surgery, you're right. And that healing is going to depend upon you. That process is going to depend upon you, because the process of ascension is based upon the process of emotional integration, because emotions are light. And becoming light is what ascension is all about. As is above, as is below. So what that means is, and Yeshua says this all the time in our channelings, he wants us to make the lower density 3D body of a higher density like the light body is. Okay? As is above, as is below. That is the definition of ascension. That is all that it means in its most general form, is that you are becoming enlightened. Your more dense human body is lightening up to match the higher levels of frequency in your light body. And if you want to make that hurt, yes, that can hurt. It is a healing process of emotional integration. You have to emotionally integrate all the core beliefs, negative imprints, fears, pain. That's how Earth works. It is a third dimensional environment. What that means is that any of the life purposes which you're here to learn have to be learned in a way that would initially involve contrast. So that is why we have the sun and the moon and the light and the dark and war and peace and famine and wealth and love and hatred. Um, it's all light or dark. It's all contrast. You have to get through the dark to see the light, so ascension can be uncomfortable emotionally. If you work through those emotions and you pay attention to them, they are the guidance from your heart center, from your heart chakra. The heart is the first thing to develop other than the spine. The spine in the human fetus embodies the seat of knowledge. This is your spiritual wisdom. Your heart embodies your emotional blueprint, your guidance. Okay? So you have the seat of knowledge, which means you have to activate all of that seat of knowledge by activating your pineal gland. How you do that is keep your diet clean. Feel free to ask me questions about that, but generally speaking, you know what your body needs and doesn't. Garbage in, garbage out. Stop putting the garbage in. Simple. Listen to your body, eat what it needs. I'm not going to be one to lecture you on that or say be vegetarian or vegan or do eat this and don't eat that, but generally speaking, if you put it in your mouth and it hurts your body, stop doing it. Simple. Lactose causes me incredible gastrointestinal upset, so I don't partake in lactose. Meat makes me emotionally off, so that would be really rare that I would partake in meat. And that wasn't always the case. But as you enlighten more, you will learn what your body can take and what it can, and each of you are different. There is no right or wrong in that regard. You know what your body can take during an ascension process, and you know what your body needs to eat, so listen to it. That is the first way to ascend. Secondly, garbage in, garbage out with the emotions. I don't mean walk around like a fluffy bunny and only accept positive emotions, but I do mean that when you are feeling something, you have to come into your complete awareness by integrating the emotions that are causing you pain and by being aware of the emotions that are causing love and that are creating love in your life. You know, because the ultimate goal of ascension is unconditional love. All is love. So when you're operating in love, you are operating in light. When you are operating in light, you are going to ascend. When you are operating in love, it doesn't mean that you are always positive, but it does mean that you are aware of what you are feeling and that you are showing love in a non-judgmental form for yourself and for others. When you're able to detach from ego and disidentify with painful personal meaning in relation to emotions and in relation to those triggering, catalyzing situations from your loved ones and friends and coworkers and all the above, when you're able to disidentify from attaching a negative personal meaning to emotions in all scenarios, then you also will enlighten. You will ascend. So, does ascension hurt? That's a hard question to answer because if you don't put specific awareness towards your emotions, they are going to hurt more. For example, your inner child is like a toddler, and when I take my toddler into, say, a grocery store, and she hasn't had a nap, and maybe she's hungry and needs a little snack, and she's just in a bad mood because she was triggered by her older brother, or whatever the case may be. Kids will be kids. If I go into the grocery store with her and she begins to, you know, as most parents would call it, if she acts out, that's what a lot of parents say. I don't like to call it that way, but this is truly definitive reasoning. And she just, say, throws herself on the ground and starts kicking and screaming and having a tantrum. How am I going to handle that? If I ignore her, she's going to get worse. If I placate her and say, oh, you poor thing, she's going to get worse. So what do? You don't try to tell her how to be. You don't try to tell her it's going to be okay. She doesn't think it's going to be okay. To her, her not getting that, expensive toy that she really thinks life or death depends upon, if she gets it or not, is a life or death scenario to her little heart. So I can't go in and invalidate her and say, oh, you're so spoiled. I just got you a toy last week. It's not going to make a difference if you don't get that toy. Why are you crying? This is what I see you guys doing all of the time. You're invalidating your inner children, your inner child who needs love, and you're hurting, or you're angry, or you're heartbroken, or you're grieving, and you're saying, oh, well, really, I know that I probably shouldn't be feeling this way. That's invalidation. That's not helping. Sink deeper into it. That is why I created my Aura Alchemy process, which also is on my YouTube, and it is also on my blog at aurareader.com, so that you can go into these emotions that are triggering you, because it doesn't help when you invalidate, ignore, or succumb to the shadow of the inner child completely by perpetuating the emotion over and over and over again. That too doesn't work. And I want to discuss that for a moment. When some of you are coming with your shadows, your inner child work, and you're coming and you're saying, do the Aura Alchemy process with me, and we do it, and we transmute something very deep, and you're ready, and you cry, and it hurts, because my process isn't easy. And then we lift you back up, and you go away feeling enlightened and a lot better, and then you come to me the next day, and you're like, I didn't get it. I didn't get the shadow. I didn't lift that. I didn't enlighten. I didn't transmute that. You are beating yourselves up with shadow work. Perpetuating the process when you have already integrating and not believing that you have integrated it is seriously right up there in the top 10 reasons for why you are not enlightening, where your inner child can say, well, why would I go from point A to point B when I can go from A to Z to B to G to D back to A and then say that I've done none of it? Why would I go straight to an enlightenment process, do the work, and be there when I can choose a process and beat the crap out of myself first? Why do you guys do that? Because you're bored. You are enlightened, interdimensional beings who like the hard way of expansion. That is why your expansion hurts emotionally. And that is why it is turning and manifesting into these physical festering diseases and into dark night of the soul and into many, many, many different facets of diseases, both mentally and physically. You do the work and then you don't believe that you've done the work. Trust Source. You not believing that you've done this work is akin to walking up to Source and saying, you effed up. Do you think Source makes mistakes? I don't. That was tangent land. Next question. This is more of a statement. Mel is saying, I fear there will be a lot of confusion. Fear is the author of confusion. They go hand in hand. Ask your questions now, but keep in mind that releasing fear also means trust. Trust Source. Do your work and you will ascend. You don't need to know how it's going to happen. You don't fully need to know all of the details. Some of this embodies and espouses complete trust of Source within you. Okay? But yeah, there might be some confusion for those of you who are going to remain in doubt. If you have confusion, that comes from a core belief of doubt and lack of trust. Work through those core beliefs and confusion will become something that is not even on the table because you won't even need to know. There's no need to be confused about it. You're here to be human. Your human aspect is just as important as all of your interdimensional extraterrestrial aspects that we talk about on our Facebook group and on my website daily. We all talk about soul braids, we talk about soul forks, we talk about galactic origins, we talk about the light body is here and having a human experience. Exactly. That is exactly why you're here, to have a human experience. And if you're busy having a human experience, and you're really, really staying in awareness of that human experience, you won't be worried because you will be integrating and you will be facing and integrating all of the traumas and emotions and contrast-based emotions that are here to wake you up spiritually so that you can ascend. You will be naturally guided towards any particular spiritual process that you're meant to work with in this lifetime, or none. Some of you ascend without any processes because you trust Source that much. You can ascend without processes, merely with love, forgiveness, disidentifying from negative connotations and definitions within human emotions, and releasing judgments. This will lead you straight into the path of unconditional love, with or without a process. Release your confusion and be human. Just enjoy your humanness. And when you don't enjoy being human, be completely authentic that you're not enjoying being human. And face that emotion, sink into it, let it overcome you. That is why I created the process I call surrender, so that you can stop worrying about integrating every little emotion and just sink into it. And when it overcomes you, you will have a knowledge that it is not going to be half as bad that you think it will be. A lot of you say, well, if I surrender to emotions, it's going to kill me, emotionally or physically. The more you surrender, the quicker you will float back up, and the quicker you will realize that you're not going to die. And not only are you not going to die, but you're going to be so expansive and virtually unstoppable as a human. And you will complete all your purposes with the one act of surrender. Simple as that. It's a really simple process. And it's right there on my blog at aurareader.com. Been using it for years, but I've never really written about it. So go take a peek at that. That will release your confusion. But for those of you who aren't doing that and you aren't allowing your heart center to fully guide you into ascension by facing your emotions and sinking into them and really surrendering, then yes, there will be confusion because you're still in 3D. You're still in third dimensional aspects of duality. So that can be very confusing, and I want to eliminate that confusion today with some of the tools that I like to use to describe ascension. And I love these. Let me show them to you. They are little handmade Russian dolls, and I'm sure you have seen these before. If you open one and it opens, and then you put in another, and you open that one, and then you put in another. This is essentially how ascension goes. If this is the human you, there are many other yous within that. There's this one, and when you integrate an aspect of you, a certain emotion that comes from your childhood that you don't like, you integrate that part of you. That aspect of you is now integrated. And then you are more one. Okay? But integrating that core belief, that's where it gets fun, will cause you to uncover another core belief. And then you open up that and you crack your heart open, and guess what? You crack your heart open, there's something else in there. And then you're like, wow, so I did that work, and I think that I'm down to the nitty gritty, and then I crack open that core belief, and then there's another one. Do you notice how all of these beings within you, all of these fractals of you, all of these tiny little dolls, can all fit into one you. And as each of these, now I'm going to drop them, as each of these aspects are integrated, and these represent all the aspects of you, they become smaller and smaller and smaller. This is how Ascension works. Human, Pleiadian aspect, Lemurian aspect, Hyadian aspect, original source aspect. Enlightenment is becoming smaller and less dense. You are no longer this dense, heavy, emotionally scared human. You are what you started from, this tiny little fractal of source that created you. So the confusion is that people who are then in the 3D perspective and have not opened this up and gotten through all of the integration necessary to get to here, to become enlightened, as they are integrating and other people are integrating as well, they don't see this. So they think it's gone. And it's not. It is now a part of you. So, 3D perspective, 5D perspective. From the 3D perspective, these are the people that are not aware of anything that's inside of that. All of the universes within universes within universes. All of the fractals of source within them. So what they see when all of these ascension things are about to occur, when it begins to occur, they're going to see war. They're going to see devastating natural disasters that really affect them, that they're right in the middle of, and it's going to be traumatizing. They're going to see a lot, okay, of devastating things, and we've discussed that. From what I've been told, I haven't watched the actual channeling, but I think he told you all the natural disasters that were headed your way from the end of September for the next 10 years. But this is a process. We're not all going to blow up in September. I need to get that clear. So from the 3D perspective, they're going to be seeing those things. From the 4D perspective, okay, a little bit more enlightened, they're going to see all of it. They're going to see all the natural disasters, but it could be on another side of the world. It could be in a different country, or it could be in a different state. They could see economic collapse, but in a different country. They could hear all the wars and rumors of war, and they could open up the news and see all these terrible things are happening, but for some reason, maybe they live off the radar in a tiny little mountain town somewhere. And these 4D people are able to step in for the 3D people, and they're able to hold the space for that healing. They're able to step into war zones without getting killed, without getting traumatized. They're able to hold healing space for the rest of humanity in order to get the 3D up to 4D so that they can ascend. So many of us are in 4D doing that right now. That's where I stand in my ascension process. I'm incredibly 4D. So that means that I am not a top-down teacher, and I am not a bottom-up teacher. That has been discussed a lot in spiritual communities lately, where teachers are calling themselves top-down or bottom-up. Bottom-up being Byron Katie and Teal Swan, and many people who go into these amazingly brilliant shadow work processes, which I really, really respect. I have one of my own. And then work their way up to ascension into the 5D. Top down is more of Matt Kahn, Abraham Hicks, Eckhart Tolle, where they're looking straight towards unconditional love first, and then they go down into the shadows safely. I believe in both ways. Therefore, I am not 3D or 5D. I am smack in the middle, so that I can go down to 3D when need be to pull people out of their shadows, and then go up to 5D when need be to keep them in enlightened states. That is my modality. That is how I teach. I teach balance. So back to Ascension. We discussed the 3D perspective and the 4D perspective. Now we're going to discuss the 5D perspective. From the 5D perspective, they're going to wake up one day. They could be sleeping. They could be just walking around. And they're going to wake up and Earth is going to be dramatically different. They're going to wake up one day and realize that all of a sudden they look at the news and, oh, look, the war ended. Oh, look, financial collapse, but we recovered, and it's like there, we recovered. We're thriving now. What a really brilliant day. You know, I woke up with my wife or husband or significant other, and they were on their best behavior, and everything was beautiful, and there was so much love, and I got a raise, and then I went on vacation, and then I did all these things. And now, all of a sudden, the government has decided that they don't want to trade with money. So we are now an intentional community. So we are changing these processes, and now we are an intentional community. And all of these beautiful things will be happening for the 5G people. They will not ascend. They're not going to float away and leave the 3D people here. It's not going to be like, oh, you're gone. Oh my gosh. I love you. I miss you. You're separated. No. You're going to wake up one day, 5D people, and the ones that you love are going to be right there in another dimension with you. We are multidimensional beings, so you're going to be on a higher vibrational existence of Earth, which has then been recreated, and it will be beautiful. You will not miss anyone. They will be there. However, for those of you in the 3D, okay, you're going to be the ones that view the perspective of seeing these people ascend. And you're going to be like, my wife was in bed and now she's not. Now, that's not going to happen in September. We got a long time on that. Don't worry about that right away. Those things are going to be happening a little bit at a time, but not in some big apocalyptic disaster where things happen like that right away. We're not due that in September. That will come, but not now. When that does come, however, the 3D people will be there, and they will wake up, and there will be a missing person. And they will experience that as grief, because they're coming from a place where when they see something like that, they relate it to grief. Okay? So, and then they will experience that as a giant loss. But this is the good news. The moment they really, really, really work through and integrate all these little levels of their being, they're becoming lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. And then one day, they're going to wake up again with those loved ones, in an existence with those loved ones, right there again. Okay? You can ascend and join them at any time, whenever that happens. There's no stopping point on when you can ascend. The earth is not going to blow up and take that opportunity away from you. It will always be there. Okay? Even if you die and you're in 4D spirit form, you can still ascend to them. There will always be a chance for ascension. You're not going to have that taken from you. I hope you understand that. I'm going to give you another quick little tool. Hopefully this will show up on camera. This looks really weird. This is called magnetite. And this magnetite is attached to 2 round magnets. And it's just kind of all over them. And it is sitting in a bowl of sand. And these are 2 completely different scientific elements that are composed of different things. One being magnetic, one not. Okay, so I'm going to show it to you. See this magnetite? Let me pull it really closely. The magnetite is attached to the magnets here, and see if I move my finger across it, you know, and I try to pick up the magnetite, it sticks right to those magnets. See that? And see, it's really cool stuff. I can move it around, I can shake it up, it doesn't matter what I do, that sand is not going to attach to that magnet. Only the magnetite, you can get this if you like to do gold panning, by the way. This is where I got this stuff, because I like dirt. So you see those little round magnets, that magnetite is attaching to them, but the sand is not. No matter what I do, that sand is not attaching to those magnets, but the magnetite is. So magnetite is really funny stuff. See me moving it around? It's like really like I can't even get it from the magnet. Like I'm pulling it, but it's still going to come back to the magnet. Isn't that awesome? But if you try this with the sand and you put the sand on top of the magnet, nothing happens. The sand remains separated. It is a perceived separation, and it actually is manifesting right there in that moment for you in actual physical form. That's how magnetite works, and this is how Ascension works. You only attract Ascension scenarios based upon your density or higher frequency. Magnetite is a very magnetic high frequency. So as you ascend, you will kind of be like the magnetite, and this will be your perspective. You will be separated from the sand because you're not of that consistency any longer. Everything changes. Your organs begin to change. Your emotions become more enlightened. You're able to manage triggers better. Some of you that go completely into 5D while still human will not have human emotions that are triggering in a negative facet whatsoever. You will be completely stripped of ego. Yes, it is possible. I'm not personally there. I'm in 4D, and I choose to remain in 4D so that I can have a completely human experience and authentically hold a space for emotions for yourself and for me forever and ever and ever. I have no particular desire for ascension. I like myself as 4D, as is. So, but for those of you who've chosen the 5D route, you can also hold space for emotions, but you don't completely feel them. You feel no human emotion. That sand cannot go towards that magnetite with you at all. Like you are the magnetite in that sand. See, the black is the magnetite, and the sand is not attaching. Emotions will not attach to you in any negative facet whatsoever because that sand is denser than the magnetite. Okay? The magnets in these situations are source. Notice how the magnetite completely and effectively, see, this is them all mixed up in here again, all right? They're not, sand and magnetite staying separate. If I take the magnetite out of the sand, this is me taking it out, it's attached to these round magnets, sand stays behind, not a single drop of sand on that magnetite. This is source. This is you enlightening yourself by attaching to source within you. Now there's magnetite all over my hands. So the sand can't attach to source. The sand is not even aware of the source. The sand is in and of and around the source, but is not of an awareness of any attachment to trust in source. This is a 3D perspective. Okay? This is how Ascension works. So if I were to move the magnets from the bowl, sand doesn't come, magnetite does. That is how Ascension works. You either change the sandy composite to magnetite composite and you lift with the magnets as I lift them, or you stay in the sand bowl. It is your choice. But the sand holds no particular awareness of the magnetite as it attaches to source. The sand only has a particular awareness of the sand and all of the particles of sand around it. And this is how it will be with your loved ones in human ascension. You will perceive them as passed from the world. If they ascend, you will perceive it as a loss. You will perceive it as like the magnetite leaving the sand bowl and you're still there. But if you are from a 5D perspective, it's you and source, and that is what you perceive. And when the sand decides to come along with magnetite, because source is always there. These little magnets that are attached to magnetite right now, these magnets are always in existence. So if the magnets are always in the bowl, it has endless opportunity for the sand to become the magnetite. Okay? So that's exactly what I want to talk about today, is that we are perceiving ascension from incredibly different perspectives. All right? So let's go on to another question. Let's see what you guys are saying. Fear that someone is saying, I fear that ascension will not come. This is from Jennifer. And that I will still feel terrible and alone too often. That is a fear that you will need to face. Fear of ascension can hold you back from ascension, but you want to find out where it comes from. If you're terribly afraid that it won't happen, what you need to do is surrender to the fear that it won't happen and tell your inner child, I am fine with it not happening. Okay, this is what it feels like for it not to happen. Go into it. You're going to be devastated at first. It's going to be scary. It's going to hurt. This isn't easy work. This is why I created the surrender process. If you're afraid it won't happen, pretend that it's not going to happen and go into that and say, well, why would that be so bad? Question yourself. What would feel wrong about that? What would feel badly about that? So go into it and ask yourself, what would be bad about that if I didn't ascend? And then feel what would be bad about that. And this is going to break through your resistance barriers that you have that cause you to believe that it's not going to happen, because then you're going to be okay that it's not going to happen. And the moment you're okay that it's not going to happen, you're going to begin to ascend. Isn't that just irony? Okay, so face it, please. Next question. Let's see. Is ascension discussed here in our group the same thing as what people call the apocalypse, the rapture, or the second coming of Jesus Christ? Yes and no. From a 3D perspective, they are going to perceive many versions of apocalypse, rapture, and second comings. Many who believe in Joseph Smith will perceive it being as a second coming of Joseph Smith. Many who believe in Jesus Christ will perceive it as a second coming of Jesus Christ. Many who don't believe in a rapture at all will not perceive that. They will just see war and apocalypse everywhere. And this is a 3D perspective. This will not happen all at once where you perceive one rapture, one apocalypse, one this, one that. It'll happen in stages over the course of the next 10 to 20 years. Okay? And it's important that you begin to integrate now and ascend now, so that you're not perceiving ascension as being devastating, apocalyptic, and completely duality-based contrast and pain and war and all of that. Okay? Because the people who are already in the 4D perspective, they will perceive it and be able to disidentify from it, and will be able to say, oh, well, something happened and people across the world are calling it a rapture. For some reason, the economy is still running and things are still not affecting me, and I'm still going to work on a daily basis, and I'm still eating and having access to normal food, and I'm still completely fine. That is how 4D will perceive those scenarios that you are describing. 5D will not perceive it at all. They will not perceive it at all. They will wake up one day where there, like I was saying a while ago, where there is a clean and pure and wonderful, spiritual, intentional community where everyone's living peacefully and things are great, and they will imagine that all of a sudden they woke up in bliss or stages of bliss. So let's move on to the next question. What will happen to my body? Will I still be this version of me? How do we choose to stay, and where do the ascended go? Let's answer those questions in a backwards format. The ascended fifth dimensional and above beings will go to the different dimensions that they are operating in. They will then be in a fifth dimensional frequency. They will still be on Earth, but it will be a newly created, ascended earth that is peaceful. So that's where they will be. Those who are still in 3D, when their 5D loved ones ascend, will view that as a great loss. But it is not the end of the world. The moment they ascend, they too can wake up in that 5D dimensional frequency with their loved ones as if nothing ever happened. Okay? So, what about the humans who have not ascended and needed help? This person would ask that question because, much like me, she's very 4D. There are many of us who have chosen to stay as a fourth dimensional being in a third dimensional environment like Earth in order to hold a space for that chaos. Yes, there will be chaos, but no, it will not affect you. You will be able to step into it without harm. As simple as that. You will be able to step into it and completely hold a space for those who aren't ascending to be able to ascend at this point. And then if you choose, you can ascend with them. Fourth dimensional beings who are doing this and will do this throughout the ascension process on Earth will be the strongest, most flexible beings to be able to hold a space. And then when they're ready to ascend, they will. I personally will be, if I had my way, and hopefully I will be the absolute last person in third dimensional environment. You know, until my physical body passes, I will be here in and around the chaos and operating within it and bringing peace to it. I will be bringing the light into the darkness, which is what 4D beings will do. So, let's see. Another question is, well, let's answer the question about, will I still be this version of me? That's up to you. If you go into a fifth dimensional frequency, you will be the best version of you. And you will suddenly see that if you had any perceived fallacies in your human body, and I say perceived because I believe that we're all perfect exactly as we are. But if you have any perceived fallacies that you wish to change, it will be really easy to change once you go into a fifth dimensional existence. When I started to go into a fourth dimensional existence, I began to not need as much food or water or weight that I had put on from a thyroid disorder. Thyroid disorder was automatically no more, and weight began to drop, and it is still dropping. And my body is changing. For those of you who are following me, you see every time you look at me that I look a little bit different. My aura looks a little bit different. My body looks a little bit different. That's because during a fourth dimensional experience, it's really, really easy, to be the best version of you. So I'm headed into that. I'm headed into that best version of me. So I'm kind of in between. Not completely there, but in between. And that's how fourth dimensional beings will be. I don't have a lot of health problems, but when I do, I heal them really quickly. I just got over an immense kidney infection that probably could have put me in the hospital, and I chose to heal in 3 days. So this is kind of a fourth dimensional thing. Like, no matter how sick I get, I will heal really, really fast. Fifth dimensional beings will ascend into a different body that they have always dreamed of. They will wake up and be like, wow, I lost a lot of weight. Wow, look, I'm having a good hair day every day. My hair is now naturally curly. Wow. They will be aware that it is an ascension that happened, but it will still feel very natural. Okay, so that's how that happens. But yeah, you still will look like you as long as you are human and alive. Let's talk about this a little bit more. Fear of not doing it right, fear of not ascending right. We need to talk about that. There is no right or wrong way to ascend. If you're off track, if you think you're off track, stop beating yourself up. Let yourself be off track. Sink into it. Surrender to being off track and be like, well, number one, you can't be off track if there is no track. There is no out of the box if there is no box. You create everything. You are not off track. So if you say you're off track, sink into it and say, fine, I'm off track. So what? Let me be off track. How does that feel? Obviously, I've got off track for a reason, if there were such a thing. Okay, let's go more deeply into some further questions here. I'm just reading from the list. I think that we've covered this, but we'll cover it again. Are there different levels of ascension? Yes. 3D, 4D, 5D. That's what we're doing here on Earth. If you're doing anything different, then you're not on Earth. At that point, you ascend to a different experience where if you go into 10D particularly, you will be in a completely different star system if you ascend to that level. And we don't discuss this a lot because not a lot of us are choosing to do this in this incarnation. We aren't choosing to ascend past 5D. I particularly have no desire to even get to 5D. I'm perfectly fine in 4D. Maybe next go around. So, but many of you are choosing even beyond 5D. And if that's the case, you wake up in 8, 9, 10, 11th dimensional environments. And you will ascend and one day wake up and be a light being. But when you ascend to that particular dimension, you don't have much recollection at that point during your ascension that you have done so. So it's not like you're going to look back and say, oh yeah, I was a human at one point, and then I ascended, and all of a sudden I'm a Lyran being on a Lyran planet somewhere in 11D. You won't really have that particular consciousness or recollection thereof. You'll just be a light being having a beautiful experience, and it will be completely different, and we'd have to get into the different galactic origins and dimensions, and in order to tell you all that, it would take a lot longer than we have today. But you will simply be a light being if you would choose to ascend to that level. Okay? I think that as of now, I'm going to let this video be for what it has been, because it is 46 minutes long and I feel like we've covered a lot. So we're going to save these topics for Ascension Part 2. I love you guys. You can find me at aurareader.com. If you want to join my Facebook group, it is also facebook.com/groups/aurareader. Keep asking questions, but don't let it put you into fear mode, okay? If you have any questions about this video, feel free to go ahead and post about it in my group, and let's give it a whirl. Let's discuss it. And I'm going to go back to your thread now and begin to answer some of your other questions that we did not discuss today, and the rest we will save for Part 2, because as the human that I still am, I do need a small amount of dinner. Yeah. Oh, someone asked what you eat while you are ascending. When I ascended into 4D, I began to only want to eat a raw diet, and it really shocked me because in my 3D form, I was a non-vegan. I liked milk and animal products and crappy food, and I liked it a lot. My thyroid did not. So in 4D, I'm really drawn towards an alkaline diet. I'm drawn towards very pure, raw vegetables and fruits, particularly root vegetables. But it will be different for each of you. But generally speaking, that is a general fourth-dimensional diet. I don't eat much. A lot of people who are around me say, I just never see you eat. Or if I do see you eat, you just take 5 bites and suddenly you're full. How are you doing that? It's a 4D thing. You will understand when you get there that you don't have those same hunger signals, because hunger signals come from a place in your brain that is operated by the hypothalamus gland, which helps with the fight or flight response, which I don't have. I don't have fear. Okay? And I don't have these type of fight or flight fears where I'm like, I must eat now. I have emotional-based fear. I need to correct that. I don't have fight or flight-based fear. So it's not that my fear is completely eliminated. I still feel human emotions like fear and grief and anger and all these things. But when I feel it, I do not attach a hypothalamus response of fight or flight. I face it. People say to me all the time, oh, if you're afraid, you're going to leave me. Or if you're afraid, we're not going to be friends. Or if you're afraid, you're not going to follow through with this project or this, that, or the other. And that's absolutely not true. Because the 4D perspective on fear is that we look at it, we observe it, we understand where it comes from, we surrender to it, and then it is no more. So that is the fourth D, perspective on fear and how we face it. But I don't have the standard type of fight or flight response, which is really, really different. Therefore, I'm not attracted to the foods that most people are attracted to, like meats and things of that nature. I'm no longer attracted to them because those animals were killed, and they hold the energy of trauma and fight or flight response, which is really different than that frequency of energy in the meat is different than my body, which holds no alignment with fight or flight response. So when things happen that normally terrify most people, I don't have any shock. I don't go into shock like when people have accidents and they have shock. I don't do that. When I burned my finger the other day, and it burned and it hurt, but I did not immediately remove my finger from the fire. Someone had to tell me that my finger was in the fire, and I was like, oh, that's why my hand was hurting. Ooh. Those are the strange things that happen in 4D. I got in a situation where a dog was going to potentially bite me, and if I had reacted in fear, because it was a neighbor's dog and he ran right into my yard, and I did not go into fight or flight response, I just stood there and I looked at him like, oh, really? You going to bite me? Okay, not scared. And he was one of these breeds that really wanted to bite me. Like, he really wanted to hurt me. But because I wasn't afraid and he did not see fear, I stepped into an aspect of me that was embodying my empowered mode, and I screamed at him and I said, back off. And he looked at my eyes, and he looked me straight in the eyes, and he knew I was a dominant being, and he backed off and he ran. Yeah, 4D stuff. We're not afraid of our empowerment. We're not afraid of anything. The only fears I'm facing right now are stage fright and spiders. And I think that they're almost gone because I picked up a spider today and let it crawl on me. So there you go, 4D stuff. But 5D perspective is just going to be completely different because you're not going to have any particular degree of emotions that hurt anymore. If I were in that space, I could not help you. I could not help anyone in 3D or 4D if I were in that space. So I choose to remain in 4D. And I cannot tell you what to do or give you suggestions in your particular choices in Ascension and Enlightenment. But I will say, don't forget the human you. Don't forget the reasons why you're here. Okay? It's very, very important. Don't run from your fears. Don't run from your emotions. For those of you who are saying that you are bored with humanity and you don't like humanity and you're disgusted by humanity, sink into that because you are human. Sink into that. Love humanity. If there's a part of you that you don't love, begin to learn how to love it. If there's a part of humanity that you don't love, understand that that aspect of humanity is here to be loved and deserves love. Ascension Part 2, on the way here soon. I love you all. Namaste.